Hello and welcome to the Farming Today podcast with me, Charlotte Smith. In this episode, trail hunting and caged hens are to go in a new government animal welfare strategy.
Allowing them to transition, supporting them financially to transition to non-cage systems. We will support our farmers and we will give the public what they want, and we'll be meeting what the retailers are moving towards.
Let's start, though, this morning with the response to the Batter's review of profitability in English farming. It was published last week and makes 57 recommendations to government and, as she put it, calls for a total recalculation of farming's economic importance to England. The review was commissioned by the last Environment Secretary, Steve Reed, and has been welcomed by his successor, Emma Reynolds, who's already acted on one of the recommendations and is establishing a Farming and Food Partnership Board, though the government's full response will come next year, along with the 25-year farming roadmap. The National Farmers Union has welcomed the review, but said that the ball is now in the government's court. Its deputy president is David Exwood.
Britain's farmers are getting left behind. We need a transformation in the approach to growing food in this country. We're going to take the Farm Profitability review as the beginning of that transformation. You know, the creation of the new sort of farming board, which the Secretary of State will chair, is really important. This is going to put food and farming decisions back into the heart of government, in the heart of DEFRA. Since we had food was not a public good, I think farmers have been, well, I think Minette talked about farmers being bewildered and frustrated and angry too, frankly, because they can see the value of what they do and they can't understand why the government don't see the value in what they do. So this is a chance for the government to demonstrate the real value of what farmers do for the country and the economy.
Let's just unpack that a little bit. When the post-Brexit schemes came in England, the government said that it wasn't going to pay for food production, it wasn't going to help support that because the market does that. And what it was going to support was environmental actions. And on this programme last week, Baroness Batters talked about a privately funded scheme, Sustainable Farming Incentive Scheme, which would include food production. So how would that work?
Look, I think what we need back, and this is what Minette has talked about, is balance between food and the environment. It has been all about the environment for a decade. And that's got to change, and it's got to change now. And it's not about one over the other. And yes, there can be public funding and private funding for both. The SFI scheme, the Sustainable Farming Incentive Scheme, does have elements of encouraging sustainable food production, and that's good. But the government have very, very few levers when it comes to encouraging or just having any influence on food supply. So look, we need that balance back.
So 5 things then that in the new year, the government could say we're going to do this in the short term to really help.
So look, let's take the 5 things that the government put in their key areas they put in their response to Minette's review. The setting up of the Food and Farming Board, yeah, absolutely, let's get on with it. Planning reform, we've been calling for that for some time. This is all about farmers able to get on and get permissions more easily so they can develop and grow as businesses. Absolutely key. Supply chain fairness, again, we've talked about it a long time. Let's make that mean something. Unlocking natural capital markets, yeah, absolutely, really key, really important. And then finally, the 5th one was exports. Look, we need to export more, produce more, make more of what we grow in Britain, have an alternative market rather than just retailers in this country. We're all behind that. And those are things we can get on with straight away.
David Exwood from the NFU. Environmental groups have also responded to the review. Vicky Hurd, Strategic Lead for Agriculture at the Wildlife Trusts, told me that profitable farming is essential for nature.
Well, it's absolutely critical that farmers who are under a lot of pressure, we know right now, and as Minette pointed out in the report, they're under a lot of pressure, but so is nature. And we know that we can do both solutions together. Nature is absolutely fundamental to farming future, our food supplies, our water, our climate resistance. So yes, we care very much what profitability farmers have, how they can survive.
Some farmers, though, have already decided that actually to be profitable, they have to intensify, they have to use every bit of their farm to grow or produce food. And that's what they're doing.
We know that way lies madness, because the soil will be reduced to nothing, water will be polluted. You won't be able to get more and more from your animals. You know, what we need to do is to value through public and private markets the proper multifunctional outcomes from farming. And that includes food, but it's not only food. And we know, because we've done the data, that if you do a more nature-friendly farming system, possibly with less intensity, you actually earn more, because you're spending less, your costs are less, and you're not costing the natural systems which are free to be depleted.
But government budgets are under pressure, and farmers don't feel they can rely on government schemes. The largest one in England is currently suspended for new applications because it ran out of money. So are groups like yours going to step in and actually put your money where your mouth is and fund some of this?
We are already doing a lot with farmers, providing free advice and guidance where we can. But the reality is the money must be there in the future to pay farmers for the public goods that they can deliver, because we can't carry on like we are, because the climate's changing. We won't get the food we need. At the moment, we absolutely clear, and Minette's clear, we need the transition supported right now, get the environmental schemes back on track as soon as possible so that transition can happen.
There are 57 recommendations in this review. If you were saying to ministers who are looking at it and at the 25-year farming roadmap, what 5 would you prioritise?
5 that we prioritise would obviously include getting the right kind of budget, long-term finance for the environmental land management schemes across the nation. We'd also want to see a very clear investment in advice and guidance and collaboration between farmers. Another critical area is trade policy. Our farmers should not be competing with lower quality produce from overseas, so that's a real critical area. The 4th would be absolutely something I've talked about many times, supply chain regulation. So farmers and growers are not abused, as they are right now, at the farm gate from the buyers. And the 5th one would be more money in the future, anticipating what we need to do to make our land resilient to the climate change effects ahead, the flooding, the drought, the wildfires. And as 70% of the land is farmed, that's a critical part of a climate adaptation package. And the farmers need support to get that on track.
Vicky Hurd from the Wildlife Trusts. Colony cages for hens and pigs' farrowing crates are to be phased out as part of the government's animal welfare strategy, which is launched today. Trail hunting and snares will be banned, while new laws on livestock worrying will be introduced. Ministers say it's the most ambitious such strategy in a generation. Anthony Field, head of Compassion in World Farming in the UK, welcomes it and told me it will improve things for farm animals.
In those cage systems we have at the moment, on average, a hen has the size of a piece of A4 to spend her whole life in. So we would argue, and based on scientific evidence, that it does restrict the hen's natural behaviour. And therefore, we want to see the end of this system. And we believe this system of cages should have been banned years ago.
There is, though, of course, a price implication here, isn't there, for consumers? Because colony cages, which some will argue are big enough, they're bigger cages where groups of hens live, they do mean that the eggs are cheaper.
There is a price implication for it, and we've carried out some research that shows that the British public are prepared to pay that price. So we don't think that's a factor. The UK has got rightly in the world is renowned for its love of animals and wants higher welfare standards. And our public are prepared to pay for it.
Let's talk about farrowing crates, which are used when sows give birth. Some farmers argue that they are really useful because it prevents the sow from lying on and squashing the piglets. These are now going to be phased out. Some might be a bit concerned about that because they do offer that protection.
Certainly over the years, our stockmen have lost the skills in managing these large animals. We basically need to go on a transition to allow our stockmen to build up the skills to go to free farrowing systems where these sows are not confined in, let's say, crates that simply don't allow them to move for several weeks. They can't turn around, they can only stand up, lie down. It is a cruel system that really confines them at a time when from a behavioural point of view, they really want, their hormones are high and they really want to nurture their young, and they simply can't. So we have to remember that around 50% of the UK's pigs are brought up in non-farrowing systems. So there is an alternative out there, and other countries have banned the system and successfully kept the mortality rates low. And remember, in all of these cases, the government will have to hold a consultation on this, and I'm quite sure all these points will be brought up by the various parties, and it's up to the government to consider the way forward.
Let's talk about slaughter. This strategy talks about addressing the welfare issues that arise from the use of carbon dioxide to stun pigs because they say have animal welfare concerns. What would you want to see used instead?
Well, I know there are a lot of tests going on and alternatives being used around electric stunning, around use of argon gas. The issue we've got with carbon dioxide gas is that the gas actually reacts with the lining of the pig's lungs and creates intense pain as they're going through the process of becoming stunned. And that can take up to a minute. And you only have to see the footage of these pigs desperately trying to escape to realise how painful and what a low welfare system that is.
Farmers are under a lot of pressure at the moment. There is a danger that these sorts of changes add more pressure. How much can you sort of mitigate that, do you think?
That will be allowing them to transition, supporting them financially to transition to non-cage systems. It will be supporting them, ensuring that imports of products from abroad are also in line with the welfare system. So we're not bringing in, for example, with hen cages, we're not bringing in eggs from battery cage systems into this country. And by doing that, we will support our farmers and we will give the public what they want, and we'll be meeting what the retailers are moving towards.
Anthony Field from Compassion in World Farming. And that's it from us, and indeed from me, until after Christmas. So from me and producer Beatrice Fenton, Merry Christmas. While we go and make yet another festive list of things we really must get round to, let's go over to the BBC Weather Centre for the Farming Today 5-day forecast.